Hello, and welcome back to another devlog slash game design slash theory slash me just talking about making stuff digitally type video. So, today I guess we're going to talk a little bit more about characters, not so much of the design of the characters, but just the approach to building and designing out not just your own character, but NPC type characters as well. In my previous game, Dork Souls, I created the character to be the game. I thought that this was the best way to go about using scenes and dreams, is to have your character be the game. Along the way, I ran into many issues that brought me to the realization of why you would build a game chip or a logic chip for your actual game logic that runs in the background of all of your scenes, connecting them together. Little issues, just simple things like when your character dies, everything resets on that character when it dies, is destroyed, and then respawns, unless you set up a way in which it doesn't. But the way in which you would do that is by making a game chip, and essentially when it came to the current game, the Little Dead, I found myself needing a game chip to keep track of all of my basic functions. In Dork Souls, I also had all the weapons built into the character, so when I put him into any scene, everything he needed was there. I've since learned that you don't actually need to do that, because essentially just the character needs to have the models built into where he's holding them and using them. But that can be done many ways as well. You can put them in the model like I do and have them turned on and off with keyframes. You can have them wired to teleporters and tagged to be positioned in their positions through teleporters. I don't like that method. There are ways that it is better than the way I do it, but currently I'm using my method because that's what I know how to do. The teleporter method would just require, a whole different setup, and it makes certain things easier, and I'm sure I will get into dealing with that myself and learn how it works, and probably find out that I've been doing things wrong the whole time. But that's half the fun of the whole game design process for me, is doing things one way, finding out that it was not the best way to do it, doing it a new way, finding out that's not the best way to do it, and then breaking everything I have done previously because I found some other way to do things. But that's how it goes. As far as characters go, though, you don't want to put everything on your character like I have been doing in the past. Even in the background here, the character has the weapons at the floor. I have since removed them because since the time of making these clips, I have learned better ways. Like I said, you don't need, all the weapons everywhere. The character just needs to know that he has certain things and has the ability to show that he has them. How you do that is up to you. I use keyframed versions of the object copies placed into the hands or onto the position that they need to be. But that is, again, up to you and your understanding of how things work and what method you use. It doesn't matter. Another element of this video I wanted to approach was that when it came to making NPCs, I found I didn't have to make a bunch of different NPCs. I could just make one that does everything I need it to be, or does everything I need it to do and is everything I need it to be. By using keyframes and the randomization, I was able to create an NPC that can be male, female, have different hair colors, different clothing colors. So the generation of the NPC would be, randomized. So in the situation where I'm using it as like a city where it's, just random survivors, and and I didn't want them to all feel and look the same, I used my technique that I talked about in previous videos, the randomization of, the randomization of anything, basically just using randomization to your benefit. In this case, it's making one puppet into several NPCs to just be random in a specific scene or, specific dream. Again, the technique can be used in many ways. It doesn't have to be in this way. This is just one way I found to use it, in a way that you can make NPCs and they can be low thermo. You just have to put in one and it can be, controlled or randomized. It doesn't even have to be random. It can be controlled. You can decide who's, if you have a specific kind of character and you need it to be at a specific time, you can control that. But I built this NPC here so that it can be both random and or something specific if I need it to be. It's just a matter of wiring it up to the keyframes or making new keyframes for what you need. And then as far as the randomization goes, I just made a set of logic so that first it randomizes boy or girl. The boy has its own set of randomization options that it goes to, and the girl has the same thing. Then from there, the things that are universal, like weapons, those are randomized, and it doesn't matter if you're a boy or girl, so that's its own set of separate randomization. The same thing with like the alliance. You can have, in my case, I wanted them to be able to be, enemies as well. So there's a randomization to whether, they are good or bad, essentially. There's so many things that can be done with that. I've used the technique so that I can build side quests that are randomized, so that when you go up, when they spawn, they can be a boy, they can be a girl, they can have a certain look, they can have a certain clothing, they can have a certain weapon. It's all random. They can even randomly spawn with a certain set of, side quests, which are also random. So, it's just layers and layers of randomization used in synchronicity to create a very natural feeling environment. They react when they're shot. They have different reactions that are, again, when current health is being, modified, they go to a randomizer. It randomizes the sound, so it's not always the same sound. It randomizes their reaction. Sometimes they just take damage. Sometimes they might run away. Sometimes they might decide to shoot you and run towards you and fight you. Same with when there's zombies around. The military guys have different AI than the civilians. The zombies have different AI. They all react to different things. I found ways in which to, using tags and trigger zones to tag things, essentially separating it from being just, friend or foe or enemy or player or whatever. There's several layers to the tags and detection so that you can have a dynamic interaction between not just yourself and an NPC, but an NPC and a specific army NPC or an NPC and a zombie. All the things have their own sort of brains that they react to things differently and randomly, so it's not always the same. Now it's simplified, and in my case, I did, I could go in and do 30 different randomization choices, and then it'll feel really different. I only did, a handful for each thing because I'm just really practicing the technique and learning how to use it, and not really focused on making it super immersive. But if you wanted to, you could. You can make an NPC with, instead of, I did, 5 or 6 random phrases, they might say, you could do 30. You could do 30 random phrases, and they could be triggered by specific events. In fact, I have some things that are triggered by specific events, but I just don't have the numbers. I did a handful of things just to show the technique and show it in theory that it works, and not to make a fully immersive AAA title. However, if I were to do that, these are the techniques I would use. I would just use them on a grander scale and create, a much more vibrant, living world. These techniques are, again, universal. They can be used for anything. It doesn't have to just be character design. It doesn't have to be level design. It could just be factors in the game's math. There's so many ways that using a little bit of randomization can really go a long way. And in my case, I found the way to use it for level design and character design in a way that you can make more dynamic levels and characters. And you can use those same techniques on the interactions that characters have with things. If you add a little spice, a little randomization to almost every element, you start to create a much more living game. You know, something that feels much less like a controlled game and more like the players interacting in a world that wasn't so much laid out for them. I'm a big fan of not holding hands. I'm a big fan of game design that does not pull you towards one thing. I want the player to feel like the character. I want the player to do their thing. I don't want them to feel like they're being dragged by a leash. That's just my personal approach to game design and my philosophy. There are reasons why the other ways work, and there are games that work in a linear fashion and require it even sometimes, and that's fine. I'm not knocking any sort of game design choices that anybody else makes. But me personally, I don't like hand-holding. I prefer the Legend of Zelda, the Dark Souls, the Metal Gear, the more adult approach to games where it doesn't tell you everything you need to know. You got to figure it out. Some things are intuitive, and things that are intuitive, you try them. If they work, they work. If they don't, then they don't. But that's the way it works. You got to figure it out as you go. And I find that using these randomization techniques in many different ways has helped that process, because it makes things feel more natural and makes them feel more, random. Let's just face it. That's what it is. You're making things random, and that brings a whole element of surprise, and you don't know what to expect. It depends, and that's in the perspective of using it for level design, as opposed to you can use it for anything. So it doesn't have to just be, like I said a million times already, it doesn't have to be one thing. Use it how you see fit. Like I said, I came up with the technique on accident while trying to get another mechanic to work, and it sparked the idea, and that's sparked many other ideas from there, and now I'm able to make a dynamic level in an hour. I've made several levels now in just in the span of a couple hours. But using these techniques it's almost like a cheat. So I would say learn how to use randomization to your benefit, and use it on your characters. You can use it to randomize their health, their stats, their walk, their poses, their reactions to things, their colors, their clothing. You can use these techniques to randomize anything that would help bring your character to life, or your NPC to life, or your bosses. These techniques can be used in so many different ways with your characters. And as far as character design goes, that's not what this video was about. So you design your character the way you want to, and you use these techniques, and you can bring some life to it. I hope this is helpful. I hope that it's something new. As always, if you have questions, if you have a specific thing you want to know how I did, or how I would do it, something you're trying to do, feel free to ask. Comment below in the comments down there, or wherever they are, and I will respond to the best of my knowledge, and hopefully get you pointed in the right direction, or give you a technique or a perspective that you didn't see. Otherwise, If you're still watching, thanks for watching as always. I love you. Goodbye.